Hello, everyone. Thanks for being with us. I'm Michael Holmes, live in Orlando, Florida.
And I'm Isa Suarez, coming to you live from Miami. You are watching CNN's continuing coverage of Hurricane Irma.
Well, the day Florida has been dreading is finally here. Hurricane Irma, now a dangerous Category 3, is already lashing the Florida Keys with hurricane-force gusts, and it is expected to strengthen in the coming hours as it draws ever closer to the U.S. mainland. Irma shifted slightly west during the day, sending many people on Florida's Gulf Coast to emergency shelters. Almost 200,000 customers now without power. It could be many hundreds of thousands more in the days ahead. The governor pleading with everyone to evacuate while they still can.
If you have been ordered to evacuate, you need to leave now. This is your last chance to make a good decision. Evacuations are in place in areas across the state. More than 6.5 million Floridians have been ordered to evacuate. Do not put yourself or your family's life at risk. Now is the time to do the right thing for your family.
All right, just get that number. 6.5 million people in Florida have been told to evacuate. It's a staggering number, isn't it? And tens of millions are currently under a hurricane watch. CNN meteorologist Karen McGuinness is joining us now. Karen, tell us about this new track, the latest information we got in the last hour or two, and where it's headed.
One thing you can say about Irma, you can say about every hurricane, is they are fickle. If you remember, about a week ago, we were looking at Miami. Miami seemed to be the focus of where the computer models, the European, the North American model, was kind of aiming at. Then, as we went along, it kept shifting just a bit. There are a lot of dynamics that take place with hurricanes, as you well know. And now an interesting dynamic has occurred. But I'll give you the latest information right here. The eye has really gone through an eye wall replacement cycle. It is looking tighter and more concentric now that it has pulled away from the coast of Cuba. And by the way, you can only imagine what happened when this was a Category 4, made landfall as a 5, became a Category 4. What kind of damage must be seen there? But now it looks like the Florida Keys are going to be battered for hours. It's still about 90 miles away. So here we have this great vulnerability, and it is looking very impressive on the satellite imagery. So I dare say that by the next advisory, we may see this creep back up again to a stronger hurricane. All right, there's a lot to be said. Numerous power outages reported across the Florida Keys, specifically Key West. But take a look at this. This doesn't look all that impressive. It's a storm surge. But let's zoom in across this region. Here are the Florida Keys, essentially the Everglades, and then we go up towards Marco Island and Naples, Florida. We can zoom in and show you Marco Island. Marco Island is beautiful. It is gorgeous. It's a sumptuous community. But there are all these little inlets in here. And if we're looking at a storm surge of, let's say, conservatively, 8 to 12 feet, could be 15 feet. We're looking at all of this beauty going underwater, and look at all these little inlets. All of that will be flooded. There is a very fragile ecosystem across this region as well. Let's go further to the north towards Naples and Cape Coral, and you can see all the different little inlets across this region as well. And still, we go to our graphic here and give us an indication that Sanibel Island, Captiva, many visitors there essentially can expect to be underwater with 8 to 12 feet, possibly 15-foot storm surge. They're going to be repeatedly battered. They're going to be in the worst possible zone of this hurricane over the next 24 hours. Where do we expect landfall? Let's go up a little bit further. We zoom in across Cape Coral. Here we go. We're looking at the region right around Punta Gorda. And where you see this red shaded area, that's where we're looking at significant storm surge. You go back in a little bit, and maybe the storm surge is only a foot, maybe 3 feet. But if that storm surge is in your home, that's major devastation. Let's zoom out a little bit more, go up the coast just a little bit further. Here's Tampa, here's St. Pete, here's that waterway. And if you add an additional 10 to 12 to possibly 15 feet of water across this region. Now, this juts out a little bit. And because now the computer models are suggesting that it's already moved towards the northwest just slightly. So we're looking at being battered by that upper right quadrant. That's where we see the potential for very high winds. You're looking at the potential for tornadoes. Already I saw at Fisher Island a 57-mile-an-hour wind gust. At Key Biscayne, there's already a 65-mile-an-hour wind gust. So even though if you shifted from the east coast of Florida to the west coast of Florida and thought, oh, you're safe there, we now know the west coast is very vulnerable. But still, this east coast is being battered as well. It may be tropical storm force winds, but still this hurricane is 90 miles away from the Florida Keys. So there's still this great impact. When do we anticipate landfall? That was what I was trying to get to. It looks like it may just hug right around the coast. It could possibly not make landfall until about midnight tomorrow night, possibly around Naples, could be Sarasota, probably Sarasota, or perhaps further north. We'll just have to keep looking at it. Michael, back to you.
Yeah, Karen McGuinness, thanks so much. And last hour we spoke to the mayors of both Naples and Tampa, both very worried about this latest track and what it could mean for storm surge in their towns and cities along that west coast of the peninsula in Florida. We got more of our breaking coverage of Hurricane Irma coming up as the storm closes in on Florida. Miami Beach continues to feel some of the outer bands. We'll talk to the city manager when we come back.
At Holiday Inn Express, we can't guarantee that you'll be able to contain yourself at our breakfast bar.
Morning, egg white omelet. Sup?